And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Yes, sir. Hello to you. It's Christian. My call sign's Kilo Zero Sierra Tango Hotel. Also joined by Steve, Whiskey 7 United Delta India. And what a week, Steve. What a week turned around. Yesterday was like, I thought I'd have an easy go of this week, and especially Friday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, sir. We got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about net control, being in net control, and maybe being a better net control, or getting over the fear of what is keeping you from trying to be a net control operator. Winter Field Day looked like it was a success, Steve. The bands just went kaputty right after. We thought maybe there was some Winter Field Day fatigue on Sunday night.
Yeah, it was. I think that's what it was. It was just people were kind of they're a little tired, but the bands were just hopping for Winter Field Day. It was just awesome.
Yeah, and there's a discussion to be had there. And I know we just have a few minutes and we're going to get into our net control stuff. But where do you fall in this whole thing where like running power on say Field Day and Winter Field Day? Because some people are getting bent out because you're up against the 1,500 watts or 1,000 watt station. The root of this whole thing is to be doing it as an emergency sort of situation. Where do you fall? Is there room enough for everybody? What do you think about it?
I think there's room enough for everybody, but I mean, there's the spirit of it, and as a if you're out in the field, yeah, you could run 1,500 watts, but you're going to be consuming quite a bit of fuel if you're running a generator, because you're going to have to run a sizable generator to supply enough current for your amplifier. But you're just adding more complexity for your field operation. And from the home station, I just operate 100 watts just to be, you already have an advantage with in my case, a beam on 20 meters. So there's that advantage. And I don't need to add any more insult to injury to the participants and running full legal power. But are there guys and people that do that? Yeah. And I think it could be an ego thing, but for the spirit of it, just go with what it's, intended for. And, but for me, I would go with, exciter power or, 100 watts and a basic antenna, just basically the same way I would do setting up out in the field. So summer field day where everyone's running pretty much 100 watts and wire antennas, and we should do the same at the home station, but we can't control everybody.
Yeah, that's right. I just want to get your idea of what that. I know both sides that feel a certain way. That's why, the tune-up was created, the Fallout was created to kind of not level the playing field, but to make it less full, if you will. I want to thank John Amadeo for coming on Sunday. We started doing a Sunday show, and Sally and Lou for talking about that special event that's coming up in March. It was crazy. I want to play a little fast clip here. If you've missed it, my interview with John Amadeo, I'll play a little piece here for you. You can find this at the YouTube channel. Do a search for 100 Watts and a Wire, and you'll see the interview there with John Amadeo. Here's a clip. Maybe you'll get this analogy. I worked at WMMR Philadelphia. We played 2 Grateful Dead songs, Sugar Magnolia, Touch of Grey, and we became known as the radio station that played the Grateful Dead. And really, it was just a little bit. And for you, I wonder if you'd talk about the little bit of ham radio that went into Last Man Standing, what that meant to this community.
Oh, absolutely. I guess the funny part of it is...
According to an Alexa Answers contributor...
This was a fun part.
Who's that coming from?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor...
I don't know.
I know what that is.
Side, but,
it's on my side. I can tell you what it is if I can figure out how to shut it off.
Live.
And I'm going to have to go off camera for just a minute.
Do your thing.
Bear with me.
If you're just joining us, sure, that's all good. This is perfect. It's live. Now you know it's perfectly live. It's Christian. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time, we're doing a 100 Watts and a Wire Sunday evening edition, brand new, talking to John, AA6JA, and you know him from Last Man Standing. And we're talking about how a little bit of ham radio, just a little bit of something injected into the mainstream can make it a whole lot. John, you were saying.
Okay, so the most important thing to know is that I did not put ham radio in Last Man Standing. And I think I've told the story before. When I met Tim Allen for the very first day and we talked about Mike Baxter being his character, we talked about him being, a man's man. He owns or runs an enormous outdoor store. They have a gun, archery, camping, fishing, hiking. And then Tim's character, Mike Baxter, was going to be a bit of a survivalist, maybe a little bit of a prepper. He was going to have in his house a bomb shelter that had canned foods and a generator and that kind of stuff. And then Tim said, and I would have radio equipment, and I went, ham going, huh? Radio equipment. And Tim said, ham radio. And I said, oh yeah, I know ham radio very well. And as it turns out, Tim had gone to a local Southern California radio store and he had looked at radio equipment. He didn't buy anything at the time, and I don't know why, but he didn't. But I said, well, if you want your character to be a ham radio operator, I can certainly hook you up. Well, anybody in your viewing this podcast would know that that's a golden opportunity to get a major celebrity hooked up with ham radio, because Tim wanted the equipment, but he also wanted to get his license. So we made that happen. We called a few manufacturers, and luckily for me, Ray Novak at ICOM answered the call and provided us with the equipment. Pretty much every season, we've had the newest and greatest ICOM gear on the stage, and made Tim's character fictitiously KA0XTT, which is a experimental call sign that we're allowed to use on television. And then after a couple of years, I think only 3, Tim took his test and got his real license. So that all worked out well. As far as putting ham radio on the TV, there's a lot of ham radio if you know what you're looking for, but it's mostly in the background. It's real equipment that's on the air, hooked up to antennas, But then there's also, like, if you look in Tim's home office, there's a whole collection of vintage microphones in the background, right? And there's scenes where Tim or Nancy will come walking out holding a magazine. It's usually a QST or a CQ magazine. And the hams see it and they notice it, and I think they're pretty excited about it. The home audience, who knows? Maybe not. But it was really a lot of fun. And then I tried to educate the writers to ham radio, and a couple did answer the call. And there's at least four incidences of actual on-the-air ham radio use on the show throughout the years. It's not a lot. It's a tiny little nod to ham radio, but it's a lot of fun. And I think that the viewers have been pretty much excited about at least those episodes and all the little references that we put into ham radio over the years. So, we do what we can.
Yeah, check out the full interview at 100 Watts in a Wire, the YouTube channel, and do a search for Sunday Night. You'll see the interview with John Amadeo. Now, Steve has brought some props. We're talking about net control, things like that. He's known for his work with Ham Nation and then the 100 Watts in a Wire net, at least since 2015. Steve, what got you started into nets? And let's just go ahead and open it up and see what we can figure out about how to get stronger.
What started it was with our local clubs, that I've been involved in. And we would have every Tuesday night, we would have a local 2-meter net on Simplex. And basically we just passed it around. Okay, this week you're going to be the net control operator. And the following week someone else was. And it just kind of went around, and we had a script and started off with that. And that's, I think, is a great way to start, because you already know the people, in your club, and it's pretty well limited. So, doing that it made it really easy just to kind of venture off into HF, where my audience was bigger, but it's still a little intimidating and stuff. But it's not as, bad as you think it is. And it's a good way to get practice, especially on HF. If you want to be, I think, a better operator, and you want to have some more enjoyment, or you want to get involved in MCOM or even contesting, being an HF net control operator is a great way to hone your skills, your listening skills, and trying to pull, calls out. And then when you have a lot of people in there trying to, wade through all the QRM and trying to get to the person that you're trying, that you've concentrated on and trying to make the contact with. So it's a lot of benefits. It's not that hard, and you don't need a big station. I started off as a little pipsqueak, and especially on Ham Nation. When I started it, it was, basically a simple radio and a
Let's
simple
see
antenna.
it. I know you have it there. Let's see what you got. Let's go to Steve's first.
So here's the radio I started doing net controls with on Ham Nation. Was just a Yaesu 847, 20 plus year old radio, and it wasn't what I got back here now, and the antenna was this, just a Carolina Windham. Just an off-center fed dipole for years, on 20 meters, and it went. That's how I started, and it wasn't. I didn't go from 0 to hero overnight. It took a little bit, and granted, there was propagation was pretty good, so I was able to do it. Sorry about that. I just put it down at my feet. It was. It just kind of evolved, and there was days that it just didn't work. There was other days I worked out great. Now, I was fortunate on the Ham Nation side. I had another net control that I worked with, Bill K5LN, and he was in Texas. And so the two of us kind of worked together, just like we do on 100 watts and a wire. Mm-hmm. And because of the diversity, because there was guys I would hear, Bill wouldn't hear. And people that were close to Bill, I would hear them, and then we just kind of bounced off, or I relayed for them, and that's a great way to start off, is join in with an existing net, or like, if you want to come and join us and relay, because people that are close to me I don't hear, because it's just they're in my cone of silence basically, and then but you will hear them and you can relay them. It's like, hey, you make the contact, and that's a great way to kind of to get in there, get involved, and then it's just really easy. It's just go along. Each net kind of has its own personality or way they do things, and then bring your personality and your style of operating into it and liven it up. And my way is not the only way, or Christian's way. How we do it is, we kind of do it our way, but every net's unique. But get out there. It's a great way to, just hone your skills and be a better operator, and go out and have fun. That, as long as you remember you're having fun with it, go for it. It's you'll get a lot of enjoyment. I'll tell you, one of the things that even to this day that I get excited about is working brand new hams, especially ones that are just upgraded, or brand spanking new. And I've had that pleasure to work brand new people. I've had people, they got their license, they've had their radio, they've been waiting to get on the air. And then here comes Ham Nation Net, and I'm the first guy they've talked to. And I'm like going, that's awesome. It's so great and so cool from my point of view, because they go, it's a friendly voice. They're nervous, and you get a lot of self-satisfaction out of that, helping bring the new blood into the hobby. And
they're not necessarily pile-ups. I mean, our net does a pretty good job. When things are good, we got a steady flow. Mm-hmm. But the temperament of it isn't like you're running a contest, so you don't have to be freaked out about it. Just pick the signal out. You can hear, work the guy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's pretty patient with things. But I think it does help you if you do get into contesting, or you do get into, you build up this sort of cadence to, and you can certainly learn by listening to nets too. You listen to, how they take the check-ins, how it goes, what's sort of their format. And some of them are very, I've heard the MCOM ones. Heard a guy one night do a shelter-in-place net. They have one here in Illinois across the bridge, and it's very specific. It's not a lot of stuff going on here. It's you're checking in, you're checking out, you're in, you're out. And then I heard a guy on another one of these sort of Aries nets that got a little chatty, and he was like, yeah, and then I started thinking, and then the net control had to kind of, net control is a net control. You have to kind of take control of the situation. And the guy thanked him for his comments, but said that's not really appropriate at this time, to open it up and be like, hey, buddy, and I talked to Tim on Saturday and we were hanging out. Our net's not like that. Our net is more conversational. It's more laid back. Take a couple minutes, say hello, get people in and out. But it can make you a better operator by listening to the nets.
And you get to, really work your equipment, and you get to know how your equipment operates and what filters you can do, and shifting the IF, cutting back the bandwidth. There's a number of things you can do. What to do with someone that's off frequency, like they're using an older radio and they're maybe a few hundred hertz off frequency and they sound Donald Ducky or something. You can use your clarifier or RIT depending on the radio you have. That way you can, move your receiver onto them without changing your transmitter. You get to really work your radio, and it helps out. And I think it just makes you a better operator overall. Every net is different. They all have their structure. Some are really, really formal, and you got to check in to the net control or check out. Others are, informal, like ours. We're just pretty informal and just kind of go along, and you get a feel for it. The person that I like to engage. I like to get chatty, and then others, they just want to check in, check out, and it's like, okay, cool. That's fine. And finding that balance and going along, and just it's the same as operating. There are guys out there, they don't want to rag you. They just want to have you in their logbook and says, yep, we made a contact, and that's it. Hi, bye. Yeah, the weather here is so and so, or my rig is so and so, and bit of bang, bit of boom, thank you, ma'am, and off you go. And others want to, they want to talk about whatever. So.
Yeah, I often tease Steve and Ian. Ian is in Georgia, and Ian's very structured, and he's in and out. He's only operating for a little less than an hour, so he's got his own way. And then you turn it over to Steve. By the time you get to 8:00 Central Time, an hour later, Steve's coming to the graduation. He wants to know what color you've painted the barn. He opens it up, and it's an inclusive, friendly, open discussion. And me, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere, and we talk about its efficiency and trying to talk about it to the people a little bit to get to know how they're doing. And then, so it is kind of your own deal. I would encourage people to check out our nets and at least check into them and see that it's at least a friendly place where people are, will wait patiently. We've got a guy who checks into our net almost every week. He's 80 years old. His name is Phil. I love to talk about him. He's got half of his antenna down. He's near Boston. And Steve and I want to take a road trip to help him get this antenna back on the air, but we've got this pandemic and we're waiting that out. But he's, we'll say, let's let Phil in here. Let's let Phil talk. He'll invite me to Easter dinner. Oh my God, Christian. And it's come over and eat the kielbasa. And he's going on.
Pierogies and everything. It's the whole 9 yards.
He's the sweetest man. And he checks in, and everybody just waits through it because you understand that this is the kind of net where, that respect is going to an 80-year-old man with half of his antenna laying on the ground, but he's still managing to get out. We pass him around. We try to send him out to where Steve is, which is, that's a haul. It's a haul for me. But, so I think getting on a net that's maybe, I don't know, do you think it's better to get on one that has a pretty strict structure to get the pattern down? Or is it better to maybe get in
that
one?
Helps. I think, getting on your, if you're really having, struggling with it, and it's like, I don't know what to say or how I'm going to do it. I don't have a big station, and it doesn't matter. Your station, you don't have to have a big station. I did it. You can do it. And so you don't hear everybody. You don't work the whole US or the world, but you work that part, and then in concert with others geographically spread out, it works out. But get involved with your local club. Every club has a net, whether it's going to be on a repeater or a simplex net. It's once a week, and usually the local club ones are pretty local. They're pretty short, maybe an hour or something like that. You run, you go through the script, you take the check-ins, depending on how it is, whether it's through a repeater or simplex. And then you just kind of get comfortable, and then you kind of come along into the HF world. And even if, you know, you don't want to be the net control, you can always act like a relay for us. I mean, I'm always love when someone say, hey, relay, or helps me spot somebody, or I get the advantage. You know, Christian does it to me. Is I'm trying to pull out a call, and then next thing I know, here's my phone. The text goes off, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy's call. and then finally, I can, you know, settle down the pile up there a little bit, and then, you know, work the person. So it helps, and it's so yeah. Come and join us, please. I would love to have you here, and get out there and chat and become a better operator, in my opinion. So.
Wednesday at 7 o'clock Central Time. We stream it here as well. And then again, Sunday evening at 7 o'clock Central Time. 2 nets, HF nets. We actually had one on a digital side. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll return to this conversation here. We're going to head into 2 stories and catch up on some of the news. We'll be right back after this. Friends, we all have a busy life, families, and things we need to take care of. So it's important that you can see a programming schedule. And because of this, you can go to 100 Watts and a Wire now and see the programming schedule. That is all the offerings that are happening. Yes, you can go to YouTube, check out our channel, subscribe, and click the notification bell, but then you're notified when we post something new, or if we're streaming live, like in the moment. If you like to schedule your life, and many people do, sometimes life won't leave you alone. So visit the website 100wattsandawire.com, click the programming schedule tab, scroll down, see what's happening on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then you'll be in tune with what's going on. You can plan accordingly. We love to live stream. I love to have you there. This way you can see what's going on. 73, and back to the show. This is the part of the show where we take a pause here to pick 2 stories out of this week's radio news. And I'm joined by my friends at Amateur Radio Newsline, my colleagues there. It's Karen, KD2GUT, and Paul, WD9GCO. And Karen, we start with a little bit of sad news. Just a note here, we had incredible timing to mention this story last week, and then sadly, new news. Can you catch us up?
Yeah, this is the kind of report we don't like to give. You may remember the oldest amateur radio operator in Sweden, Tage Carlson. He passed away. He is a silent key, literally days after we shared his story with viewers here and on Amateur Radio Newsline. What a run he had. What a run he had. But I remember getting the email and literally gasped. Sometimes there are stories that just stay with you, that really get under your skin. And his image was projected behind me. I felt like he exemplified what we all want to be. So let's remember him and be glad we have a model like a 100-year-old OM. God bless him. He was very much loved, and the folks in Sweden are going to miss him. And yes, he was active, very active in a net, much like you've been talking about, Christian.
Well, that's great. And a sad story to deliver, but what a life. I mean, that's all we can say is what a life. And he was hamming to the end.
Yes, he was.
Where do we start this week, Karen? What do we bring to the table that people should really be thinking or know about?
Okay, we move this morning to India, to West Bengal, to the Amateur Radio Club there. This particular club, in fact, was the inaugural recipient of Newsline's International Newsmaker of the Year Award. Good guys, good guys. They run on a shoestring. They've got literally no budget. They run on energy and devotion. They are doing a lot of MCOM, of course, with the weather conditions being what they are in India. They've got a lot on their plate. But one of the things they do in MCOM, which is not as commonplace here, although we do see it occasionally in the States, is missing people. In India, people go missing quite a bit, particularly the elderly. those who may be a bit mentally challenged. They just go missing. And this club is very often contacted by the authorities to track down families and get everybody back together. This stuff happens. This week, we are reporting about, I guess we called it a kind of DXing, which it is, but without radios. They found out, or they helped bring to light the fact that a man found disoriented on the street wandering about is a citizen of Australia, a man of Indian origin, had owned property in India, which is probably why he was there, although we don't know. But he needs to go back home to Australia. They sometimes do their good work without so much as an HT in their hand, but whether radio facilitated this reunion or not, what they do exemplifies the spirit of amateur radio, which is to get in there and do what needs to be done. And much of what they do, whether during the pandemic it means delivering medicines to people, which they also do, or this kind of reunion, is pretty remarkable. So we have this story, talks about really the huge effort they made to get everybody back together. It's going to involve a lot of moving pieces. There are Australian officials in India that have had to be contacted to try to locate the family back in Oz. And I expect they will be successful.
What do you think, Paul?
This club does amazing things. I mean, we get these stories all the time where they've found some family member who disappeared, went off wandering, and this club coordinates getting them back all the time. I mean, they do amazing work, which is one of the reasons why we all agreed to give them that award last year, because it's just way above and beyond ham radio, what they do, and they use radio to do it. So, I mean, it really is a positive side of what we do and what kind of an impact we can have on the community.
We'll stay with you for story number 2. What did you find this week that's interesting?
Well, you know, we all have had problems where we've moved a cable around and suddenly you stop hearing things, or we accidentally break a connection outside or do something. It's not usually that big a deal. You go in the garage and grab another piece of coax, you put a couple of PL259s on, and you're good. That doesn't work so well when you're on the ISS. There was a school that was scheduled to have a contact, and they worked up the telebridge stations and everything. For those that don't know, sometimes, depending on when the pass is going to be, sometimes a local ham will set up an actual station at the school. Otherwise, they will find some ham in another part of the world where the ISS will have a clear pass at that time, and they'll do the actual RF, and then they'll pass the audio on over phone lines. So that's what happened. And the station was in ON7, watched the tracking, and the ISS was coming up over the horizon and started calling, and nothing. Started calling, nothing. Pass went by, nothing. Kids were kind of disappointed because they'd all been up for this. And then they discovered that some maintenance up there, either the inside coax or the outside cable that connected to the actual antenna, something got damaged. And so for now, at least, the brand new Kenwood that's up there from the for the American side is offline. So if you haven't been hearing the repeater on passes and you haven't been getting the APRS stuff as it goes over, it's because there's a problem with the feed line and they can't talk. So they're going to try to talk to the Russian side, see if they can use that for now for some of the school contacts. In the meantime, they got to wait till they have time, because the amateur radio is never really a priority on the ISS, because they have, you know, real science and stuff that they're doing. Not that we aren't, but you know what I'm saying. So hopefully they can figure that out, or, you know, have somebody make up a couple new cables and send them up with the next supply flight. So we haven't gotten an update yet from Eris on that.
No, we haven't.
Karen, as the editor of Amateur Radio Newsline, is it possible to send Paul there as a correspondent? I think he would do it, and he could probably get this thing jumped up.
We actually have been talking about that, Paul. We were going to break the news to you. Monday.
I've got cable and
you leave Monday.
Soldering iron.
Pack your toothbrush. You're going.
I'm there.
By the way, I think I know a way they can get back on the air very quickly. We did have another story. It ended this week's newscast talking about how the Russians ran out of food because the supply transport was delayed. I think they should barter. We'll give you this sandwich if we can have your radio.
A little bit of time on your radio. We'll give you some food, maybe a little vodka.
Yeah, I think that would bring it right around pretty quick.
Absolutely.
You can't get a curbside pickup up there.
No.
Well, thank you both so much. Appreciate those stories, and take care of yourself. We'll do this again next week. You can leave your comments below. You can leave them in the chat. We'd like to hear what you're thinking. My thanks to Karen, KD2GUT, and Paul, WD9GCO from Amateur Radio Newsline. 73, guys.
73.
Let's take a minute to talk about what I feel is the most beneficial deal in ham radio today. It's when you become a sustaining member of 100 Watts and a Wire. Here's how it works. When you donate $25 or more, you will become a sustaining member for a year. And during that year, you get discounts from participating businesses. It's a win-win-win. The show gets your support, you get the discounts, a little more money in your pocket for your next project, and those businesses can earn your trust. Visit 100wattsandawire.com, click the Sustaining Membership tab to learn how you can support the content you enjoy. And thanks. All right, brothers and sisters, here we are. We're joined. What happened to Tim? We don't see Tim's face.
Oh, Tim.
I don't see Tim. Must have fallen off.
Some computer issues.
What do you think about running out of food up there in space?
Oh, that sucks.
Can you imagine? That sucks. Like, yeah, take all the radios. Just, can I get some graham crackers? Can I have a little bit of that? That's interesting. And we lost the old timer that we just featured last week. That's kind of it's a highlight of this week, but I'm glad, not so proud, but I'm happy that we took the time last week to highlight him.
To recognize him, yeah.
To recognize what he's done his whole time. And lo and behold, this week he passed away. But what a life to live, that long and to play ham radio. Got a guest this week from Com Academy. We're going to talk to Tim. Hey, good morning, Tim. It's Whiskey Tango Tim. 1. India, Mike, you hear us okay? Are you having some Wi-Fi?
Yeah, a little bit of Wi-Fi issues, but hopefully you can hear me okay. Yes, great to be with you, Christian and Steve. Happy to be on.
Nice to have you here.
I'm excited about this because we were talking last year. You had something in mind, what was going to be happening on this program. I'm going to share my screen now. I think I can do this without and talk a little bit about what you guys are up to. Here's the website, guys, and I'll put this email address, the web address in the chat here. Tim, tell us about this program and what you guys are cooking up.
Yeah, so we're really excited this year. Com Academy is actually in about its 20th year now, but until now, it was a local event in the Seattle area. Drew some regional participation, but it didn't have an online component in the past. This year, we realized we can't do an in-person event. Let's make lemonade out of the lemons here, go fully online, and we can have an audience that's nationwide, if not global, and get a lot of folks who might be interested in emergency communications and radio technique, net control. I love the theme of today's show. I've been a net controller myself quite a bit and just love it. But anyway, it's entirely free. That's the best thing about it. It doesn't cost you a penny. You can sign up, and it's 2 days of workshops about various aspects of preparedness, communication, technical stuff, procedural stuff. And I think, everybody who's been in the past has pretty much raved about it. And I think that a lot of folks might really enjoy this kind of training.
I love MCOM. Steve's right in your neighborhood. He's not too far away from this, and he was familiar with the program. As soon as I mentioned it, he was familiar with what you guys are doing on a local. What are some of the things that you think it's needed now? I mean, I know over the 20-year course, and you may or may not have been there for the full 20 years, looking at 2021, what are some of the themes that really should be addressed in emergency communications?
Yeah, a good example is there's going to be a presentation this year that is from some folks who did something called Oregon Internet Response. And in the aftermath of some of the wildfires, there were communities that were completely cut off from any internet connectivity. And a group of folks, mostly, if not all, hams, went down and set up temporary connectivity where the telecom companies couldn't or wouldn't even go, and got these communities back online, which clearly is a lifeline. And what that says to me is that the scope of what we need to be able to do as emergency communicators has gone beyond just picking up a mic or a key. Knowing things like how to do TCP/IP networking is a really valuable skill to have as part of disaster communications. We are fortunate in the Seattle area to have something called HamWAN, which is a multi-megabit data network that we can access over 5 gigahertz ham spectrum. So that's an example where I think it's everything that we've known about for years about good communications practices and messaging protocols and stuff like that. But some of the technologies that are changing these days, like I said, change the scope of what we need to be good at as responders.
Do you guys study at all? I'm on the Aries team here, and I love studying HF. And I sound like an old dinosaur. I'm into simplex, and I'm into studying HF, and it's sort of the backup for the backbone. Do you guys have any of that in your program at all, or is all the focus sort of the front line? Because I imagine you don't have a lot of time to teach everybody, so you need to kind of focus on the front line. What's the focus in your program? Yeah,
so the theme this year is disasters here, there, and everywhere. Are we prepared? And so it's covering everything. There's going to be a presentation on how the ICS structure works and who it's applicable to a couple of guys that actually did safety and comms for Burning Man. And many other things. So yes, HF is often covered as part of the trainings. We got to be good with all the tools in the toolkit, and HF is absolutely one of them. So yeah, you're gonna see training over those 2 days on almost, I can't quite say every corner of the hobby, but quite a range.
How are you guys funded, Tim? How are you doing this? It's free. How in the world are you managing to pay for this?
This is volunteer funded, and this is a lot of people involved in something that's a labor of love, and that's the spirit of ham radio, if I ever heard it, right? So we have some amount of sponsorship, but primarily it's just hams helping hams.
What do you need? I mean, what do you need to make this happen? I guess in the virtual sense, you probably are pretty stable and you can figure out the technology you're in a great place for the tech side of it with great minds behind you. But when you do something like this, do you do it in person when it's not in a worldwide pandemic? Do you do it in person teaching?
Yeah. So every other Comm Academy has been an in-person event. So, then what we need is just what we've got. What we're very happy to have is commitment and focus and energy from the folks that are presenting. So the way it's going to work this year, by the way, is kind of fun. The presentations are all going to be pre-recorded, but then at the time that they air on April 10th and 11th, the presenters will be live doing chat and Q&A and stuff like that. So everybody will have a chance. It's like the best of both worlds. They're presenting and they're able to answer questions while they're talking there on the screen. So
that's perfect.
That'll be kind of fun as well.
Steve, you're up there. You're a first responder. You're a volunteer firefighter. Any questions for Tim and about this program? You guys are up there in the same area, basically.
Oh, yeah. No, I've known about it even when I lived on the west side. It's been great, and I've watched it every year. I've had people from where I work at that have gone to Common Academy, to support our company ARES team, and they just come back and everyone raves about it. It's been kind of this little local thing we've had in the Northwest, and it's just gotten better and better every year. And then now you've taken it to the next step, and you've taken it virtually, which I'm kind of thinking, even when we get back to normal, that you're going to end up probably continuing it, because it's just the response that you're going to get from nationwide, even worldwide. Now you've opened it up to a worldwide audience. It's going to help. And on top of it, you're going to expand the, your pool of presenters. And it's just going to go, bigger and better from there. It's been a kind of a local secret here. We've been kind of hoarding it ourselves here in the Northwest. So, but thanks for going online, Tim. It's great.
Yeah. And I think, Steve, you're absolutely right that I don't anticipate us ever not being online from this point forward. It just makes sense, right? So the learnings that we have from this year will carry forward, and I imagine it'll be a hybrid event down the road. And that's really fun, and that's kind of exciting to think about as well.
Okay, so we shared the website there. We put it in the chat. I hope that some people that are with us here this morning and even watching it down the road will check it out, because we've still got a little bit of time. But April will be here before you know it. Mm-hmm. As you plan these out, and like Steve said, you're going out worldwide now. Different areas have different problems, from wildfires to heavy storms and those sorts of things. Do you think there's an aspect of sort of assessment and mitigation at the root that can help in a universal or a sort of transcontinental a type of approach to EmComm?
Yeah, I think that it's a blend of, there are certain aspects of it that are going to be kind of universal to whatever the scenario is. I think one of the really important things is understanding where you fit in. It's our role as communications support to complement what the agency response teams need and what they're doing, and not go in and kind of throw our weight around and be the experts in everything, but to understand how we dovetail and mesh with what those agencies are doing and what they need. And so there are commonalities to that, no matter what the disaster is. But you're absolutely right that some of the technical aspects to how you respond in one kind of event are going to be very different from another kind of event. In some kinds of events, you'll have fairly free access to put up antennas and put up gear and stuff wherever you need to. Other ones you won't. So so there's a lot of different. We're going to have folks presenting from responses to a variety of different things, from wildfires to earthquakes, et cetera, storms. You kind of named some of the big ones. And so adaptability is really key, but also best practices tend to be best practices. Your best practices for how to do voice messaging or how to do data messaging, how to interface between the radio communicators and the non-radio folks that need to get traffic through. A lot of those fundamentals are kind of carry across different kinds of disasters.
Do you have issues with, especially in the ham world, I get a mixed bag, and if you're with a local Aries team, it probably has its own issues, its own politics. When you talk to your ham friends and learning about EmComm, what's the vibe you get? I think it's very important here stateside, of course. I also think that EmComm, as it relates to us here in our country, may be getting stronger on an international scale, because some places don't have the infrastructure that we have. So I think that EmComm can really play a big role, that what we know now, taking it to other places. Our country's getting stronger with Wi-Fi, these sorts of things. So the ham vibe I get on not the negative side, but the sort of, is EmComm even needed anymore, because we've got this great cell phones thing, and we've been through some disasters where the Wi-Fi and the networks have held. I know we hold this as a when all else fails kind of deal, but they have strength in some areas of communication, a lot of digital, email. what do you get back in terms of, say, research and input into EMCOM here on the stateside?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Christian, because the main infrastructure is getting more and more resilient in this country, and probably a lot of Western Europe and a lot of parts of the world. It's becoming quite resilient, and all else isn't gonna fail as often as maybe might have been the case in the past. And so I think there's an aspect of it that you hit on where being able to take what we know and travel to other parts of the world. And it's not necessarily other countries. There was a huge response in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, as I'm sure you know. So that was part of our country, but all else kind of did fail for a while there. But that's where that diversity of capabilities, where it's, if we go in there and we know how to set up networking, IP networking, even if it's going over commercial lines, even if it's not going over ham radio technology, if we say, hey, we've got some folks that understand routing and switching and whatnot and get you guys up, then that's valuable. Understanding how to do clean, clear messaging protocols, even if it's going over a cell phone, is still a valuable skill. So yeah, there's a place for the volunteer in EMCOM, even if it doesn't look exactly like what it might have looked like, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Steve, I saw you give a head nod and a little smirk there and maybe that was little because of the way we think sometimes as hams and the conversations you have. What were you thinking at least?
Well, it's just kind of reliving a few things. So Tim and I, we know what happens when we have windstorms and how Western Washington is really susceptible to, large power outages. Mm-hmm. And working for the utility, been there. We've had lines down and we've been down for days. In some cases, people are out for a week or two. And I was going back to, I think it was the Hanukkah Day storm, or I think that's what we called it, where we lost 85% of the substations for the utility, and we were down for days. And what ended up happening is the cell phone infrastructure started failing because they just didn't have the battery backup, and then it just created more chaos. And what Tim's pointing out is, yes, ham radio, the traditional ham radio is not going to come into play too much, but, setting up IP links with Ubiquity radios like the HamWAN guys are doing, or getting that going. In the case of the large fires, the infrastructure is destroyed because a lot of the infrastructure is riding on fiber, and the power is down. If you only have so much backup power, but if your fiber infrastructure is out of whack, you're going to have loss of connectivity. The other thing, and we've had this happen in Washington State and Oregon, and it wasn't a disaster, so to speak, but it was a fat finger with someone in the telephone company making a change on a router. There goes the whole 911 system. And now no one can call into they dial 911 and it goes nowhere. And that has happened multiple times. And so this is a great place to where if your local ARES team has a plan and have that cooperation, and it all comes back down to the people skills and being part of the team and what can we offer to help. But in the case if a 911 system goes down and it's going to be down for a while, deploy to a local fire station or something like that. And out in the rural areas, all fire stations are not manned. Our country is, 75% of our firefighters are volunteers throughout this nation. And so most fire stations are unmanned, or because it's held by volunteers. But if a local ARES group got together and said, hey, the 911 system went down, you go to a fire station and be there, and then, local radio stations or can make or even a Amber Alert on the cell phone network could go out and say, if you have an emergency and 911 doesn't work, go to a local fire station. There will be someone there to relay the message. And these are things that, we can do as ham operators. We got to be flexible. And so yeah, it's we have a lot that we can offer, but also, and as Tim pointed out, the infrastructure is gotten resilient, but it's, and for a person that works in it, it still has times when it can fail. And that's where we need to, we can be there. We won't always be there for disasters and things like that, but occasionally it will happen. And the communities down in Oregon, that is a perfect place. When you started talking about getting IP infrastructure, ham-wham, that was the first thing I started thinking about. But it doesn't have to be on amateur frequencies. Just setting up some ubiquity shots on knowing that and knowing microwave propagation and what you can do and setting up relay stations, knowing TCP IP, that is a valuable asset, and it can get enough. It might not be a big, 100 megabits worth of data, but 1 or 2 megabits worth of data is enough to get things going. So it's we need to expand our horizon. HF is great, but we have other frequencies we can work with.
Well, the website is on your screen right now. It is comacademy.org. I put a link in the chat. It's free, guys. It's free. My thanks to Tim for stopping by and
Thank you, Tim,
talking to us about this. And good luck with the program. I hope we can put a little wind in your sails as you start to promote it and get out and make some noise here in the ham radio media. I hope it's a full thing for you. And I'll try to drag Steve there. If we can get in there and participate, that'd be great. But thank you so much, Tim.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And great to be on. And we're very excited.
As we get closer, keep me posted what's happening, any changes, anything like that. And we're interested to report the numbers and things like that. Take care. Sure. 7-3, Tim.
7-3, Tim. Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Desktop tuners are one of the most popular ham radio accessories. LDG has just come out with the Z100A desktop tuner, and it works with all modern HF radios like ICOM, Yaesu, Alinco, Kenwood, and more. The Z100A has LDG's famous 10-to-1 SWR tuning range that matches dipoles, verticals, end-fed long wires, G5RVs, or even an off-center fed Wyndham. Easy integration means plug-and-play operation. Installation could not be simpler. The Z100A's tuner goes everywhere with your HF radio: desktop, portable, parks, islands, or tall summits. LDG is a family-owned and operated company dedicated to bringing advanced quality products to the amateur market. Our focus is anticipating our customers' needs and providing them with world-class support. Don't forget, LDG products carry a full 2-year, fully transferable warranty. Support is only a phone call or email away. We're always here to help you. LDG Electronics, everywhere you look, there's an LDG. If you want to learn programming for Arduino so you can get your electronics project off the ground, then Programming Electronics Academy is the place to be. A membership gives you full access to a library of detailed video courses, including the Arduino course for absolute beginners. PEA has video courses designed for beginners that don't assume you already have a PhD in software design. If you're tired of just cutting and pasting code, visit programmingelectronics.com/100 watts. All right, before we move on, I'm going to bring in another friend here and talk about the spirit of radio. My thanks to Tim for coming by for that Com Academy free things. I mean, holy cow. But I want to say a super chat. We got super chats now, right? And I'm not even seeing what's happening in the chat at the moment because everything's moving so quickly. Last week, Jay, Kevin, Steve, and Mark.
Thank you, guys.
They gave to the show and supported the content they enjoy. So I appreciate you guys. And in real time, I try to catch everything, but I often don't get everything. Look at this, talking about the spirit of radio today. Hello, Shane. Shane is Kilo 5, Quebec, Bravo, Foxtrot. He sent me this really cool email probably a couple weeks ago now, and I'm going to let him tell the story. We came out a couple of weeks ago, maybe a few weeks ago, talking about, the good side of ham radio. And you don't nearly see that enough. We do hear about the crap and it's all this and now I'm mad at this. the league did this. And
the negative always floats to the top.
It always gets up to the top.
Yeah.
But the beauty down below is a story that like Shane has. So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So it was one of those deals where I got licensed in 2006 and played around the hobby for a little while and got disinterested and kind of left the hobby. And then, of course, when the pandemic comes around and you have nothing else to do, started running into you guys and others on social media. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and upgrade to general. And so I started studying for the test, took the general test, started having a ball on HF. And in my weekly conversation with my mom, I told her, I said, yeah, I upgraded my ham license. I'm playing on HF, having fun. She goes, well, I don't know if you know this or not, but your grandfather was a ham radio operator. And I had no idea at all. So I said, well, do you have any information on it? Do you know anything? And she was, let me dig through some of the old stuff and we'll see what we can come up with. And she found a picture. I sent that over to Christian. She found a picture of my grandfather working his ham radio station. So got that over to me. And I just joined the 100 Watts and a Wire Facebook group. And I posted the picture and kind of the story of what was going on. I applied for the vanity call, and we figured out what my grandfather's call sign was, and no one had it. So, of course, it took up 18 days, but I got his vanity call sign. And so I sent the picture to the 100 Watts and a Wire guys, and I said, hey, can any of you tell me anything about the radios that my grandfather was working? And it took about 2 minutes. And someone came back with a post and said, it's this, and this. And I was like, I was flabbergasted. I had no idea. And about 20, 30 minutes later, I get a private message and a filtered message on Facebook from people that you're not friends with. And so I went over and I clicked on it. It was one of the guys from the Facebook group. And he said, hey, I bought one of those radios in a lot sale from a real estate deal. And he said, I'm just going to send it to you. He said, it sounds like you know, if you want to make this part of your story and part of your history, he said, I know it's not the same, but at least it's something to associate with. So he sent it to me and I got it about a week ago, I think, and set it up. And so we've got, I found a local ham here who works on the classic radios and stuff. And so he's going to help me get the radio back operational. And we're hopefully, it's only a receiver. It's a SX99, Helicraft SX99. And so we're going to get that back to where we can at least receive with it and then kind of carry that on with the things that I have. But I was just amazed at how the community just jumps in and no matter what the topic is, everyone jumps in and wants to help. And I was on Alex's stream, Whiskey 7 Hotel Uniform, and was telling him kind of what was going on. And he asked me if I had any history of the call sign. And I told him, we hadn't looked into it. And he had a friend, of course, that researches old call signs. And he found where my grandfather first got licensed. And it was the summer of 1958. And in 1959, it showed up in the call book. So I have a copy of the page from the call book to go with the radio and all that kind of good stuff. So I kind of have a full circle. He was active from 1958 until about 1969. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of history, a lot of feel good. There's a lot of negativity going on right now. And it was just phenomenal to run into a group that was just so willing, and they don't know me from anyone. And then they were like, no, I can help you with this and I can help you with that. And this is, and it brought it all together. And I really do appreciate it. I hope the gentleman's watching that sent me that radio, because I can't express to him how much I appreciate him reaching out and doing that for me.
Is this Grandpa here? This is the radio that it is. Look at that.
So that was we think that was somewhere around 1960, and so he was working. I don't know a ton, but one of the guys in the Facebook group told me what the transmitter was, but I've forgotten. I have to go back and look. But the transmitter's off to the left, and of course the receiver there in the center. And the receiver's what they sent me to go with it, and it's in phenomenal shape. It just needs to be cleaned up and have some of the insides polished up. But I can't wait to switch it on.
I mean, we got to talk about that just for like what floors me is I'm so excited for you of your grandfather and the angle. I think it's great. and your mom too. I think it's another, brings the family together. It gives her another chance to think of her father, which is something I appreciate. Anytime I can think about my father is a great day, and I always appreciate those things. But in the community, we do take for granted that it's a lot of question and answers, and sure, we get a lot of people who love to know everything, and it's just like, I'll help you, kid. But the fact that somebody picked up and boxed up something and sent it to you with the feeling that, you could probably use this more than me. Mm-hmm. That really is the spirit of radio. You know what I mean? They didn't know you from anybody. Yeah. You can't give any, you know what I mean? You can't, people don't give things away. People don't give things. Actually, what do you think about it, Steve?
I think this happens more often than we know. It's just the nature of the hobby here. We're all in it together. It's this one commonality. It transcends all geopolitical and social standings or whatever. We're all in the same. It doesn't matter where we are. We're all in it, in the hobby together, and it just goes back and forth. This passing it forward we talk about, and this is great. I mean, these are the stories I like to hear. And the people that do it, they don't want any attention. They just do it. And it's part of the spirit of keeping the hobby going and to bring some, incorporate, your family into the hobby. And now it just has a different meaning to it. You're taking your grandfather's call. And I see that a lot over, these the vanity calls was probably one of the best things we've had in the hobby here, is that you can get a family member's call and continue it. And because our call signs are us, it's personal to, and for you, your grandfather's call it's that much better. And now you got a radio. It's not the radio, but it's something that your grandfather used. And so this is great. I love hearing stories like this.
Just touching it, knowing that as you're working the radio, this is how your grandfather would have had to do this. There's something in that too, the physicality of operating damn radio. And knobs, like,
why do I have to wait for it to warm up?
Right. Why she drifts so much? But it's great. I love the picture and the story. I'm going to put this back up here because I just want to share with this. It was such a nice email that you sent me, and it was one of those right in the pocket sort of things. Mm-hmm. The fact that you pulled his call sign, you got his call sign, which is a great thing, by the way. I love that the FCC lets you do these things, and then the giving aspect. Just to kind of go ahead, you can use this more than me. It was sitting here, and that really is the spirit of radio. Shane, thanks so much, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Put it on the air, and let's get you on the nets, get you back on the net. And if you need anything or have any questions, keep in touch and let us know how we can help.
Well, the wire is up, so I can definitely join you guys on the nets. But thanks for having me today.
Right on. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, 7-3, buddy.
Let's take a minute to talk about what I feel is the most beneficial deal in ham radio today. It's when you become a sustaining member of 100 Watts and a Wire. Here's how it works. When you donate $25 or more, you will become a sustaining member for a year. And during that year, you get discounts from participating businesses. It's a win-win-win. The show gets your support. You get the discounts, a little more money in your pocket for your next project, and those businesses can earn your trust. Visit 100wattsandawire.com, click the Sustaining Membership tab to learn how you can support the content you enjoy. And thanks.
Yes, indeed. Oh, there's Stevie. There you go.
There we go.
Look at this. And talking about the spirit of radio just gets me all the clamps. I'm just, he sent it, he boxed it up in a pandemic. You don't think about the trouble that guy went through to double box. If he did it right, he double boxed it up for him. and got Shane's gear. He took it to the post office, which is a huge
or UPS or FedEx, and the cost. Those radios are not that light.
No, and it's not light. It's not easy and convenient, and it's a pandemic. And you're like, but he made it work. He went through all that for this guy, and it's just great. So, Spirit of Radio here, friends. As I have not been able to look in the chat at all, you can tell we've been really moving, but I'm happy that we're staying pretty close, and we're going to get to questions here. I announced last week that in the spirit of radio, and I'm going to go to the chat now just to look in there and make sure everybody's doing okay. The spirit of radio, we're going to give away $100 to Main Trading Company. If you haven't been to the Main Trading Company website, it is like Candyland. You can get everything from lights from your deck, LED lights, to like a 7610 and antennas. It's like this Candyland store. Like if I was near Paris, Texas, they would be like, dude, just get out. Like
it's Candy Mountain. It's just you go down to Paris, there it is, Candy Mountain.
Man, I'm like, wow, this is like really cool. Anyway, besides all that, what you can get there, we got $100 certificate. We're going to give away 4 of these this month of February, with the caveat of I want you to think about giving back. We talked about the spirit of radio with Shane, his great story. We talk about people, it's a rough time still for many, many people. If you win it, cool. Use it any way you like to. But if you can find somebody else who may be able to use it and get them one step up, give them a hand up, cool. I'd love that, to think that that's something you're thinking about as you become a winner. Now, to become eligible, all you need to do is to be here each week. Put your call sign in the chat. So if you haven't done that yet, do it now. I will sit with my young daughters and we will start to gather the call signs. They get assigned a number, and then it's a random drawing for this. So that, go ahead and put them in there now. If your name's in there this week, you may be picked and announced next week. So we did this for the first time. I was excited. I love the fact that you give something like that. Money, cash. Take us cash. Everybody needs cash. And go buy something cool. This week's winner, you ready, Steve?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
All right. I've never seen this call sign before, but it's Kevin.
Kilo
Yankee 4.
Barbecue.
Bravo, Quebec. Yeah, I want to say barbecue. And
I want to say barbecue.
Getting hungry. It's getting closer to lunch. We need some food around here at Craft Services. But we've got our first winner, our $100 gift card to Main Trading Company, and you can go to their website and just poke around. They've got deals. It's crazy. It's just crazy. And you think about stores that are actually still selling gear, but it's a trading company, so you can make deals. You can do all this stuff. I've never been in the doors physically, but I've been through that website, and it's one of those rabbit holes.
I remember seeing them at Dayton.
I need that. I think I need one of those, and all of a sudden you're in it. But as far as ham gears, it's a family business. And Richard's a ham who owns the place with his wife, so you've got a lot of things to choose from. So check it out. But congratulations!
I've seen them up in Dayton. They come up and got their booth going, and I remember the first year the 7300 was out. The next Dayton, they had a stack of them. I remember seeing the stack of 7300s, and
can you imagine?
They were gone by the end of the Hamvention. So it was great to see people picking up that product.
Yeah, good on them. It's hard. It's hard times, and the fact that everybody's got to put a little bit into the game. That's the thing. You give a little bit of the money, and it kind of keeps it moving inside its own economy. And these family-owned businesses, I don't know the financials on this company at all, but it's a family business in a small town. That's all I really need to know. So supporting them and anything that in ham related is a good deal. I want to put the question form in the chat here. If you've got a question about anything you've seen today, if you're new to the channel, welcome. We appreciate you. Poke around after you subscribe. Click the bell. It lets you know where when we're doing live streams. We're doing, I think, 4 a week now, which is really cool. I enjoy it. I used to do radio 5 or 6 days, 5 hours a day. So it's kind of like in the blood for me. But anyway, drop your questions in. And this is the time of the show where I ask, people ask questions and we get in there and try to hammer out their issues. Let's see. Are you ready for this, Steve?
Bring her on.
All right, bring her on. And you can find a playlist of all the questions that we feature on the show on the YouTube channel. So go ahead and please subscribe there. Okay, Steve, we're going to start off with Matt. What different NVIS antennas exist, and what are their pros and cons? Ooh, what of them exist? I mean, that's a trap right there, Matt. But we can talk about the pros and cons of NVIS or NVIS, as you may hear it.
Well, an NVIS antenna is most of the ones I've seen are just dipoles and pretty basic or some form of it, inverted V. And what makes an NVIS antenna is how high it is, and that NVIS only works up to about 10 megahertz. So basically, 160, 80, and 40, and 30 meters is pretty much it for NVIS. So it's in the low band as in the HF spectrum. We kind of have it 20 and above to 10 meters is kind of the upper part of HF, and 30 and below is the lower part. So NVIS works for that. So basically it's 10, 15 feet off the ground. But the most common ones that I've seen is just a simple dipole that's up maybe 10 feet, or a inverted V that's up, 10, 15 feet. And there's been some vertical antennas that like a 20-foot whip you see with the military. They'll kind of fold it over on a Humvee or a rig and just kind of have it bowed. And that kind of works in an NVIS configuration also. It's not just to keep the whip down from banging on the bridges and things like that. It also has an NVIS property to it. So, but typically the most ones are going to be either the dipole inverted V or that 20-foot some odd whip or whatever on a mobile.
Now, some could say that almost every antenna is going to be in sort of an NVIS configuration, because it basically would be lower than the actual height that it should be for the frequencies that you're working on. So in other words, I like to go out and run at 25 feet, my portable operation. So Steve said 20 meters, you're not doing NVIS, because I can work DX at 25 feet on 20 meters. But you get to 40, you get to 80 160 is an awful lot of wire to have that low to the ground. But it's not impossible. But I studied 80 meters over the summer and had success locally just for emergency situations.
And that's the pros on the NVIS, gives you local communications, because basically, in a nutshell, you're taking your signal and you're shooting it more vertically to hit the ionosphere and then come back down, instead of going out on a lower angle for a DX. So for NVIS, the pro is local communications. The con is no DX. But and so there's the pros and cons on NVIS. So it comes down to what are you trying to accomplish, and then you adjust your antenna system to meet those needs.
Okay. Well done. Got another friend that says, I like the price point of the Yaesu FT891 paired with the Atlas 120A and have found positive reviews of both. My question is, what radio and antenna setup do you mobile with? I'm trying to keep to $1,000. Here we are again. Somebody got their Biden bucks or whatever they got. $1,000. That's a nice budget. Talking about mobile radios. Are you a Yaesu guy? Do you know much about the 891 and where he is on this?
Little portable radio, great for a mobile. That's a small size, and then I think the Atlas 120 is kind of like a screwdriver antenna, and so you can work multiple bands. And so if you can get it into $1,000, I don't, off the top of my head, don't know the price breakdown on the radio or the antenna. If it goes over the 1K, you can go with ham sticks, and they're cheap. I mean, they're $20 or so for a ham stick, and you can get. Now, granted, you'd have to, if you change bands, you got to stop and change, antennas out physically, but they're pretty straightforward. But if you're kind of starting off, I think simple is the best. The radio, and the Atlas 120, I think, pairs up with the 891 quite well. But if it doesn't, or it gets a little more complicated, go with something simple like a ham stick, and you can get all the bands, and for 5 bands you can get for $100, and away you go. We had Spike earlier, and that's what he did. He got 5 ham sticks and for about $100, and off you go. The disadvantage is you got to change antennas, and if you're going 70 miles an hour down the freeway, it's a little difficult. You can't do that, but when you plan your stops,
sure,
for to recycle coffee, then you could make the band change. But
every such and such mileage, you get to stop and pull over with that. That's a good price point for, I think, the radio and everything that goes with it. I mean, I have the ICOM 7100 and a Tar Heel on mine, but you also have to think about with that, I had to get a tuner with that because I can't, and I'm not a big fan of trying to tune up the mobile radio by listening and playing with the knob so much. So the tuner for me
distraction.
Too much distraction. It's just not safe.
That's why I like the simple. It's like, okay, a ham stick, you're going to be limited to this part of the band because of bandwidth, and you just kind of go along and just, this is where I'm going to operate. And then if I want to change bands, I'll pull over at the next rest stop or a convenient place and switch antennas and continue on down the road.
Here's one that I like. This came up recently. You'll like this, Steve. I think this is the perfect question. What does it mean when they say the band is long? So when the band is long, it means, so like we'll do it on 40 meters. I say that a lot on the 40 meter net. It's like, the band is long. So from my perspective here on the West Coast, when the band is long, all I'm hearing is people on the East Coast. Everything west of the Rockies, pretty much nobody. I'm not hearing, I can normally work a bunch of people in Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, into Utah, Nevada. And when the band is long, it's just that angle kind of coming up and then, coming off the ionosphere. And so we have the signal comes up, hits the ionosphere, and then goes back down. This spot right in here, which could be, 1,500 miles, is that dead zone. And and then as the propagation changes, then the angle changes, and then now the band becomes short. And so it's when I make the reference the band is long, or anyone makes the band is long, it's basically, hey, we're working the East Coast from the West Coast, and the East Coast guys are going, hey, we're working the West Coast, and we're missing out in the Midwest. So you're getting left out in the cold, Christian. Mm-hmm. I am. I get screwed on that deal. That's what it means. The band is long. Christian gets screwed. But thank you for the question. You hear that so often. Mm-hmm. The band is long. It's up and down.
And most of the time you hear it mainly on like 75 meters, 80 meters, and 40 is you'll hear those terms. Hey, the band is long. So
okay, our friend Ricardo, he's building an antenna wire for an off-center fed 12 gauge or 14 gauge.
I go with 12 gauge, heavier duty. It's going to be a little more stout. It'll add a little bit more bandwidth because the bigger your surface area is, because remember, RF floats on the surface of a conductor. It doesn't float on the inside of it. So you have more surface space on a 12 gauge versus 14. It's going to be a little heavier, and the price is going to be a little more because 12 gauge wire costs a little more than 14 gauge. But I go for the stout. So the stouter, the better.
14 gauge is probably your base. I think most people are probably, I think you'd look at DX Engineering and you look at others. And what they're doing at the insulated 14 gauge.
Yep, that's pretty common.
Yeah, that's kind of your common. So Steve's trying to bump you up. So you look at the numbers, 12 gauge is a bump up from 14. It just looks a little different there.
And then you're going, well, why don't I just go with 6 gauge? And it's like, yeah, you can, but now you have the weight. And so there is a point of no return, and the cost. 6 gauge wire is pretty expensive.
I think I went with a 16 gauge, kind of doing some MCOM study, and they may even go up a little high. I mean, the super light kind of stuff that fits in your pocket. And I don't know if this is an off-center fed for long-term home use, but yeah, if you can get the wire up on the mast and tie it off, and the weight's not an issue for you, then yeah, let us know how 12 gauge works. I just think 14 is the one that's commonly.
That's the common stuff. You can get a 1,000-foot roll of 14 gauge antenna wire, pretty inexpensive, relatively.
Good luck with it, Ricardo. He lives in Paradise there in Florida. We can't wait to see
Ricardo,
how your antenna plays out.
Put it up so we can work. So when the band is long, you and I can work.
Yeah, right. Here's a question from Rod, and this one here is another trap, I think, and it just depends. It just depends. And if you're talking about suggestions on good headphones for, just listening, there's so many out there. If you're talking about the ones with the microphones, there's a few options out there. I don't own any of those. When I run with a headset like this. This is Sony, and these are like your classic studio radio headphones. I like them because they're light. They're not the best. They're not the worst, but they work for me. However, I might as well do it when I'm on the air. I'll wear these. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see these, but these were recommended from an audio friend of mine. And what they do is they get down to like a lower, so it's not so many high frequencies. These are, what are they? 80 ohm? What is this? Yeah, 80 ohm. So it's down a little lower. So when I'm wearing these, it's not so loud. It's a warmer thing in my ear. If you're talking about ones with a microphone, then there's a few options out there. And
there are many options out there. So
what were you going to say, Steve?
Oh, yeah. No, I use the Pro 3, the Heil Pro 3. But, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is kind of like the same headphones you're wearing right now. It's just a good all-around, goes from, 50 hertz or whatever, all the way up to 20K or just, but for me, the biggest factor is comfort. If you can wear it for a few hours and it's comfortable, that's the bigger factor. So, I mean, pretty much headphones are pretty equal. And as far as their frequency response and things like that, the bigger factor is, can you wear it for, hours at a time, and go for comfort. Just don't go, Steve uses this guy, or whatever. It might not work for you. So find something. Yeah. It's
because your Heil's right there. I remember getting a set of those, and they may be slightly different, but what they have is a smaller circle. And I don't know if I have big ears or what, but the circle, I like over the ears. So my ears go up in here and they're nestled softly. Those Heils would sit right on my ear. And over time, you talk about comfort, from my ears, they bothered me. They could sound great. And I love that the cable came out. So they had benefits too. This is sort of a tricky question, and it's built for what you need.
So this one's more oblong. Sorry about hitting the mic. So this one is a little more oblong. Let me take the cover off, and you can kind of see the difference here.
Yeah,
so
that's over the ear. This is
over the ear. So that's, the Pro Series or Pro 6. This is the Pro 3, which is, as you were talking about, that round. And so if you have bigger ears, and this particular headset might not work for you. After a while, it'll be, pushing on your ears, and then that's where the comfort part is. And no matter how good a headset is, as far as all the specs and everything, oh yeah, this has, great specifications for, frequency response. If it's not comfortable, you're not going to wear it. And so what good is it? So the first thing to go for is comfort, and then the rest of it just falls into place.
And that comes lightweight, or the AKGs. I think there's a set of AKGs that are really light. They're over the ears, very soft. They've got a bit more of a structure on the top that I don't care for. So you look like you're wearing this huge headset, but really light. And if you're going to sit for a long period of time, better think of that. Now, I don't like anything in my ear much. I can't do that for long. I can't do those for long. I see the value of them, but if you had, again, another thing is if you had hearing aids, that's another issue. And many people don't want to put it. You shouldn't put. I think you probably could, but it gets dicey to put headphones over top of something that's already in your ear for hearing assist. I mean, that's a problem. So, but you'll find somebody that tells you they can do it. They do it all the time, and that works for them. But whatever, I would never do that. So it is a personal choice. It's a budget choice. And for these, they're light for this. It sounds weird, but they make me sound like me. When I wear the ones that I showed you for operating on a radio, it's warmer. Everything is warmer, and it's brought down so I don't hear all that high-end noise, because I'll get ear fatigue. And next thing you know, I'm done. I don't want to listen anymore. Or I'll go to the speaker just in the room because it's too much piercing into my brain. But it's a good question, but it's very personal. So mind your own business and put some on. Put some on and try it and find out what your budget is. You're probably looking at $100 for a decent set of headphones.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, Bose, what are they? Bose? I don't know, not too big on Bose or Beats.
They're super expensive. Yeah.
Beats, I wouldn't. Beats, you see the kids spending hundreds of dollars on these Beats headphones. It's about a $40 headset. Sorry if you own them, but there's been pretty good research out there on actually what's happening inside. It's about a $40 headset. But that's when the brand names that you sort of mentioned about, you hear, I'm using that, I better get that. Right. This is very specific to your own taste. And don't let that name brand all the time be the one that guides you, because you might be disappointed.
Exactly.
These kids wearing the Beats don't know what the difference between, I'm getting on a rant here, Steve. Like you put on a record and vinyl, that's going to sound different than an MP3.
Kids know that this is, audio, and they don't. The earbuds only have, a really small range of frequency response. And
I'm sorry, Dr. Dre, I don't mean to poo-poo on your Beats, and I hope you feel better soon. But that's a very expensive headset for a pretty linear sound.
So when we get out of the pandemic or whatever, we get down to the ham fests and things like that, or get into the stores, try different headsets, and you find something that works. I mean, you can, go on Amazon and go, I'll order this or that. You might be sending them back, buying them, sending them back, but find something that's comfortable and that works for you and that you can wear for a few hours, and then go from there. And everything else will just fall into place. But comfort is the biggest factor, and it's personal. What works for me is not going to work for you. And but there's a huge benefit of operating with headphones. For years, I didn't operate with headphones, and the old timer saying, you. And then I finally started going to headphones. Now I don't even. If I operate, the cans are going on. And plain and simple. It's rarely do I work a station, even if I have the radio on and I walk into here and I want to make a contact with them, I'll put the headphones on just because that's the way.
Direct sound right into your head. It just.
Plus, I got monitor turned on, so I'm listening to myself as I'm talking, and so I don't want to have that feedback going.
It's a very much.
It's a personal
to each
thing.
their own. Do whatever you want. If you want to buy expensive headphones, good, but try them on first and don't go on the names. I'm not trying to crap on Dr. Dre. I mean, it's Dre, right? Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre. And if these work for you,
money on it.
Go for it.
Yeah,
whatever works.
I just can't do that. I mean, for long,
so used to it.
I just can't for long. I see the value of it. I don't think they're very good for your ears, but. I don't know, but they work fine. It's fine. Just do. You just do it. I don't care. Get off my lawn. Well, thanks, guys. We've really managed to bang out 90 minutes of fast. It was like surfing today. There's so much going on. Appreciate all the questions. Several came in that we did not get to, but we'll put them in the queue for next time. We promise you that. Wednesday night, I may try to do another net on 7230. I just have to wait the broadcast station that comes in. It seems to go away at about 7:21. As odd as that is, it's a weird time. But if it clears up, I may go there. It's a friendly area of the band, so that's kind of cool.
Let's do it.
Tomorrow night is Super Bowl stuff, and we're going to be there because I could care less. I mean, I couldn't care less, I don't think. But tomorrow we got a good show. We've got the net starts at 7 o'clock. I'm not going to be spending much time with it. I'll have Puppy Bowl. I think I'll be Puppy Bowl and Kitty Bowl. I got kids. Love this stuff. If Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes could both lose tomorrow, like if there was a situation where they could both lose, I'd be like, this is great. I would watch it. But not as much interest. So we do have a net tomorrow. Starts 7 o'clock Central. I will be streaming, doing play-by-play. Steve takes to the air. Hopefully we have good band conditions. And then after that, I think if you're not paying attention to the game, a very valuable, to me, conversation. We're going to be talking to representatives from Handy Hams. And if you don't know this, there's a lot of people, with disabilities in our hobby. And it's really important. And you may not even hear about it as much. They're not out there just telling you, yeah, I've got this issue. You may hear it.
They may. Yeah, you may hear about it. But there's a lot of people we work that have,
and they run nets. They run nets. It's fascinating. They tune up their radios. There's pieces of equipment, and equipment is a big part of this Handy Hams thing. And it's interesting. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, we'll be talking about it. And so we're going to have a ham who's got a disability, he's blind, and we'll talk to somebody from Handy Hams about that service. So if you know somebody with a disability, it may be a direction to put them in. So trying to be inclusive here. That's what we want to do.
What do we want to take? When you want to take a break from the Super Bowl, come and join us.
Come on, you don't need that. You don't need to just look at the score and be like, oh yeah, Tom Brady gets another one. I think the young quarterback from Kansas City is a fantastic player, and I think he'll probably pick up his second. I don't know anything, but my interest isn't there. I'm from Baltimore. I'm a Ravens fan, and if they're not in it, I'd rather be on the air. I'd rather be doing something else.
If Russell Wilson was there, then I might be out.
Yeah, then we would be thinking. I'd be like, okay, all right. It's a little closer to home. I get it. I understand. But my thanks to everybody. Tim, who came by, and Shane, who came by with that great story.
Thank you, guys.
And Karen and Paul, of course, and you guys. Most importantly, I can't wait to go back and read the chat. I've missed so much.
Same here. I tried to stay into it, engage, but it was like things were just going too quick here today.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate it.
All right, we will catch you tomorrow night as we head off into. You'll get to hear in Net Control and check in to Net Control tomorrow, 7 o'clock Central. The Sunday edition of the show, 8 o'clock. Steve will still be running as we start the show, and we will move into we'll dip back into him. If the net's still going on, we'll do some play-by-play after I talk to the folks from Handy Ham. So that would be cool. Where are we? I think that's it. All right, stay out of trouble today. Stay warm and hang up an antenna because it's cold.
Yes, it works better when you hang it up in the snow.
As evidenced by Winterfield Day. All those contacts was because it was really cold and they were working in the freezing. 73 for now, friends. We'll catch up with you again real soon. Appreciate you being here. See you tomorrow night.
7-3, all.
7-3, Steve.
7-3, Christian.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsinawire.com.